It's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Lauren Finlay, the Human Rights Commissioner at the Human Rights Commission. The Australian Human Rights Commission is an independent statutory body established under the Australian Human Rights Commission Act 1986. It plays a vital role in investigating complaints related to discrimination and human rights breaches across the country. Australia operates under a federal system, and while human rights protection exists at national level, not all states and territories have dedicated human rights legislation. Of the 8 jurisdictions, only Victoria, Queensland, and Australian Capital Territory have enacted stand-alone human rights acts and established corresponding human rights commissions. The remaining jurisdictions, including New South Wales, rely on anti-discrimination laws and equal opportunity commissions to address human rights related issues, particularly in the area of race, gender, disability, and other issues of discrimination. The Commission itself is a collegiate body comprised of a president and 7 commissioners with a specific focus area. Ms. Lauren was appointed as the Human Rights Commissioner in November 2021. She brings to the role a strong background in human rights and public law, having previously worked as a lawyer and academic. In a time when human rights challenges are increasingly complex, both domestically and internationally, Ms. Finlay's leadership and expertise are essential in ensuring that Australia remains committed to uphold human rights, equality, and justice for all. Human rights and discriminations are words we often hear, and many of us experience these issues in some form. Yes, only a few truly understand the role of the Commission or the complaint mechanism available to them. Today, we are honored to have Ms. Finlay with us. I invite her to share her insight on human rights violation in the current international context, as well as to outline the complaint process and how individuals can seek redress. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Lauren Finlay.
I wanted to take a moment to say thank you and congratulations to the distinguished award recipients, because in my job I talk about human rights, but when you see the work that's been done by the people who received awards today, that's bringing human rights to life, and that's something that contributes immeasurably to our community and to our nation. I'd also like to echo the earlier acknowledgement of the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet today and extend my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And finally, to thank deeply the Indian Crescent Society of Australia, and particularly your President, for the very kind invitation to join you again this afternoon for what is an incredibly important and even more important than normal event. At a time when public discourse around immigration has become increasingly divisive, not only in Australia, but across the entire world, I want to begin by affirming something that should never be in question. Migration is central to the Australian story. Migration is central to the Australian nation, and migration is central to Australia's future. It isn't a threat to our identity. It's one of our country's defining features. And as Noel Pearson so eloquently described, Australia's national story is woven from 3 distinct but equally important strands: our ancient Indigenous heritage, the British institutions that shaped our democracy, and the gift of multicultural migration. Migrants, and particularly our Indian Australian community, have enriched every part of our national life, culturally, intellectually, economically, and spiritually. Whether you've been part of this land through the spirit of your ancestors for over 65,000 years, or you're a more recent arrival to our shores. We are all part of the Australian story. What brings us together is stronger and greater than the things that try to divide us. The theme of this year's event, Interfaith Solidarity in Conflict, Building Peace Through Shared Humanity, could not be more timely. Around the world, we're witnessing deepening conflict and division right across the globe. From the Middle East to Eastern Europe, from religious persecution to rising extremism. It's sad to say, friends, but the forces of hatred and division and fear are firmly on the march. And while sometimes these conflicts can feel geographically distant, their echoes are felt here at home, in our communities, in our conversations, even in our classrooms. In moments like this, it is really easy to retreat into our differences, to narrow our world. But the real challenge and the real opportunity is to reach beyond those differences and rediscover our shared humanity. When I spoke at this event back in 2022 and again in 2024, I emphasised that human rights and social cohesion don't begin or rest solely with governments or laws. They begin in small places, close to home. They begin with how we treat each other in our daily lives, with the conversations that we share with each other, with the dignity, respect and kindness that we choose to extend to those who live next to us. This is the difference between religious tolerance and religious acceptance. Tolerance asks only that we put up with each other. Acceptance asks that we actually see and hear each other, that we recognise our shared humanity, that we recognise that the things that bind us together are far stronger than the things that try to divide us, and we recognise that even when our beliefs diverge, the shared humanity needs to be the common ground. And that's the essence of what we're all here for tonight, interfaith solidarity. It doesn't require uniformity, but it requires unity. It doesn't require that we agree on everything, but it does require that we share a mutual respect and compassion for one another. In a world that feels increasingly fractured, events like this are incredibly powerful reminders that peace is not built by ignoring our differences, but by honouring them, while still holding fast to those values that bring us together: compassion, dignity, and the belief that every single person matters. So my hope is that events like today will encourage us to continue building those bridges, that it will encourage us to continue speaking up for one another, and that will encourage us to stand united against hatred and violence and division, no matter what forms those things take. I hope that events like this will remind us all that here in Australia, our future depends not on how different we are, but on how deeply we can recognise the things that we share, the things that bring us together. Because in the end, it's our common humanity, our capacity for compassion, for respect, for dignity, that have to be the foundation for peace, and that have to be the foundation on which we build the future of Australia. Thank you so much for inviting me to share with you tonight.
For all types of criminal law, family law, immigration law, conveyancing, and employment matters, please contact Tarandeep Singh on 0470 412 600.